which was to power the Industrial Revolution, the ships and railways of the 19th century, and the first self-propelled road vehicles. Although there had been earlier attempts, a French army engineer named Cuneo is generally credited with designing the first successful self-propelled road vehicle. His steam carriage was constructed in 1769. It was able to carry 4 people at speeds of between 2 and 6 miles per hour, but it needed to stop every 15 minutes to boil water. By the early 19th century, steam carriages were being built in many parts of the world, but it was in England that they enjoyed their greatest early success. This, however, was facilitated by the improved road network developed with a huge expansion in coaching. From the 1820s, steam carriages started to provide the first motorized public transport, but they were uncomfortable, noisy, and dangerous. They blew smoke and sparks about, causing fires and apprehension around the countryside, and they were sometimes attacked by angry citizens, especially in rural areas. Steam carriages were never accepted widely, nor commercially. By the 1840s, steam carriages had almost disappeared from the roads. Although some steam-powered road vehicles existed until the late 1920s, the age of the road locomotive was coming to an end. It was to be replaced by the motor car and the internal combustion engine. The first motor car was produced by the German Siegfried Marcus in 1874. An internal combustion engine vehicle was produced by Benz in 1885 and by Daimler in 1889. This was the start of Germany's and the world's motor industry. Benz and Daimler started to export motor cars to many other countries before the turn of the century. Motor cars became popular in France, where, using German engines, they were produced and they began to be exported into England in the 1890s. Then, in England, home-produced gasoline engine cars soon started to be produced by Lanchester and under license from Daimler. The early motor cars often provoked hostility and opposition because of many accidents and extensive damage caused by their primitive mechanics and untrained drivers. However, motoring gained popularity and gradually became more respected. The 20th century witnessed a rapidly increasing number of motor vehicles on British roads. The number of motor cars increased from 8,465 in 1904 to 132,015 by the outbreak of World War I. The motor car was developed rapidly in the first decades of the 20th century, and in the 30s and 40s, it was transformed from a plaything into practical transport for millions. The number of licensed vehicles reached 4.4 million by 1950. During the 50s and 60s, car ownership continued to expand, and it became the symbol of prosperity. The number of vehicles in Britain rose to 15 million. But by the 70s and 80s, the Western world's attitude toward motor vehicles started to be questioned because of the impact of oil crises, safety and environmental considerations, and worsening traffic conditions. The 18th century saw the development of the steam engine, which was to power the Industrial Revolution, the ships and railways of the 19th century, and the first self-propelled road vehicles. Although there had been earlier attempts, a French army engineer named Cuneo is generally credited with designing the first successful self-propelled road vehicle. His steam carriage was constructed in 1769. It was able to carry 4 people at speeds of between 2 and 6 miles per hour, but it needed to stop every 15 minutes to boil water. By the early 19th century, steam carriages were being built in many parts of the world, but it was in England that they enjoyed their greatest early success. This, however, was facilitated by the improved road network developed for the huge expansion in coaching. From the 1820s, steam carriages started to provide the first motorized public transport, but they were uncomfortable, noisy, and dangerous. They blew smoke and sparks about, causing fires and apprehension around the countryside, and they were sometimes attacked by angry citizens, especially in rural areas. Steam carriages were never accepted widely nor commercially. By the 1840s, steam carriages had almost disappeared from the roads. Although some steam-powered road vehicles existed until the late 1920s, the age of the road locomotive was coming to an end.
It was to be replaced by the motor car and the internal combustion engine. The first motor car was produced by the German Siegfried Marcus in 1874. An internal combustion engine vehicle was produced by Benz in 1885 and by Daimler in 1889. This was the start of Germany's and the world's motor industry. Benz and Daimler started to export motor cars to many other countries before the turn of the century. Motor cars became popular in France, where, using German engines, they were produced and they began to be exported into England in the 1890s. Then, in England, home-produced gasoline engine cars soon started to be produced by Manchester and under license from Daimler. The early motor cars often provoked hostility and opposition because of many accidents and extensive damage caused by their primitive mechanics and untrained drivers. However, motoring gained popularity and gradually became more respected. The 20th century witnessed a rapidly increasing number of motor vehicles on British roads. The number of motor cars increased from 8,465 in 1904 to 132,015 by the outbreak of World War I. The motor car was developed rapidly in the first decades of the 20th century, and in the 30s and 40s, it was transformed from a plaything of the rich into practical transport for millions. The number of licensed vehicles reached 4.4 million by 1950. During the 50s and 60s, car ownership continued to expand, and it became the symbol of prosperity. The number of vehicles in Britain rose to 15 million. But by the 70s and 80s, the Western world's attitude toward motor vehicles started to be questioned because of the impact of oil crises, safety and environmental considerations, and worsening traffic conditions. The 18th century saw the development of the steam engine